Hi everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the fashion. Hi everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the Fashion Career Spotlight. We decided to curate this series because we think it's high time for upcoming talents, newbies, even fellow professionals in the industry to listen to other professionals, their journey, lessons, experiences, challenges, success stories to provide a form of support, encouragement, information that could guide, solve problems or challenges that fashion professionals in Nigeria and Africa are currently, facing. So, in that light, we have a list of professionals from different fields or niche within the fashion industry, writers, designers, stylists, entrepreneurs, and many more. And sincerely, we look forward to revealing who the speakers are and sharing these sessions with you on our YouTube channel.
Like, I don't think you heard me. So,
No, I did not. So,
mm,
what we decided was to record the live session before publishing it,
okay.
just to sort of guide around what goes out, what's important and what's not important. I think what YouTube Live will do is that everything is out there, but I think that we having a recorded session and then publishing it will sort of help us edit, fine tune the content before we put it out there. It's nice to have you.
Same.
I've,
Thank you.
I've been following your activities, your work via LinkedIn, actually, majorly on LinkedIn. And I'm a bit surprised um, you're not on Instagram. And I'm like, how is he managing it to just stick to one? Well, LinkedIn is a professional platform, so I think that makes a lot of sense. But why are you not on IG?
Yeah. I do. I'm on Instagram. Like, I do have an Instagram account, if that's what you mean.
Okay.
But naturally, every year, I started this like 2 years ago. Every start of the year, I go off like all platforms. Like once it's January, like the first week of January, the second week of January, I like delete all of my apps. And then
Wow.
I deactivate my account because I really feel like I want to start the year with like, a clean slate, like a clear, like just want everything to start over again for me. So that's why I deactivated the account. And then after 3 months, I come back to it when I know that like, oh, things are a lot more clearer for me and stuff. A lot more clear for me. But I haven't been back on Instagram because, to be honest, like when it was 3 months into the time I was supposed to come in, I just realized no, there's really
You're
I
not
haven't
missing so much.
yeah, like I haven't seen the need to come back here. I would come back on Instagram because like Instagram is still my baby, to be honest. But I haven't seen the need. And with my recent relocation, for example, to the UK, I have just been going through series like from one thing to the other, and I was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna sort out everything that I have first before coming on Instagram and just being like, that baby boy and
Settle.
start doing everything. Yeah, so that's kind of what happened for me. But of course, I can't leave LinkedIn because, like, I can leave Instagram because, like, I'm not really monetizing. Like, nothing comes from me from there. But with LinkedIn, I do get, like, a number of people reaching out to me for work and, like, jobs and gigs and all of that. Or come speak to our students, or, like, much like what we're doing now, come talk to people about what you're doing and stuff. So it's kind of why I stuck to LinkedIn because it has really been a blessing to me, and I genuinely cannot imagine leaving the platform. But naturally, I would like delete everything and just stay off
I
of
think
it.
I think that's quite inspiring. The whole idea of this career spotlight was to sort of bring on board professionals in the fashion space who are experts or professionals in different fields to
Hmm.
sort of just demystify the reality of what's going on in our industry. Like, listen, guys, let's hear one another, let's learn from one another, and especially for newbies coming in. And I love the fact that we're starting off on a very good note. You talking about how you can choose to go off media. Like, there was life before media, and what you're saying right now just sort of validates that. I'm also for that. I remember my first post in the new year, one of the lessons I learned was that I shared was that analog is still a thing. Pen and paper is still a thing. Reading physical books is a thing. It doesn't always, you see, like I can show you my shelf. I'm just a book person. It doesn't always have to be about being online, pressing the phone, doing everything virtually. There was life before that. I thank you for breaking the ice with just sharing
Mhm.
that. So I'm going to dive into the first question that has been on my mind. Whenever I see a post, I go through it and I'm wondering, how did Elvis get into fashion? Like, how? Because this guy looks more like someone who would have probably just explored journalism from the get-go. So how did he get into fashion? And then how did you find your niche?
Yeah, great question, interesting question. But like, believe it or not, my entrance into fashion was very much cliche. It was still the whole, oh yeah, I had a mom, I had sisters who like really loved to
Mm,
dress. So, like whilst we were growing up, they would bring me on. What do you think about what I'm wearing? My mom always loved to wear this gele because like she's Igbo and we have like this head wrap. It was a very big thing where I'm from. So she's always like, did I style it properly? What do you think we can do to change it and all of that? So that was really where my interest in fashion came in. With journalism and with writing, I had a father who really tried to leverage on the skills that we exhibited whilst growing up, right? So I am somebody who likes English, right? So my dad would buy me like dictionaries to go read books. I literally read two Shakespeare books back to back 2 times. Like I read As You Like It and I read Macbeth
mm.
because my father really
Wow.
liked, yeah, so like he would give it to me and then I'd read it. My elder sisters were very good in mathematics, so he made sure that like they solved quantitative reasoning and then they went on into pursuing careers in accounting and business management. I had a younger brother who was very interested in dismembering electronics, so he would open it and then fix it back, open a fan and fix it,
Uh,
all of that. So yeah, he's currently doing like computer science now, right? And I, who really love to write and do all of that stuff, like I was trying to chase after writing. But the thing is that like if you also grow up in an African home, like sometimes your parents may want you to do something that seems a lot more sustainable, right? Writing
yeah.
wasn't even something that they thought was like something that was going
Good.
to give you money as against like working as a doctor or a lawyer, come on, go be a nurse, like be an engineer and all of that stuff. So those are kind of like the traditional paths that they wanted me to go through, right? But I wrote jam and then I got into University of Benin where I got to study agriculture. During my second year, I was going to do a transfer to a very different department, but I decided to just stay because I was like, yeah, I'm
Okay.
just gonna do it because like there's really nothing to lose. But whilst I did that, I remember my first year too. I interned at one of the biggest fashion shows back in Benin City, Evol fashion show. It was a very big thing, Uniben. Like it housed over like 4,000 students. Like the hall
Wow.
was, yeah. And whilst I entered backstage, I was like, oh, look at me coming back into fashion and just like really enjoying the scene, the hustle and bustle of working backstage, to and fro, making sure the designers are very comfortable.
Energy. Hmm.
Yeah, the models are very comfortable. That was kind of like my first experience with fashion in school. And then in 2018, I think I decided to like enroll into a fashion school, quote unquote, but like it's more of a fashion house because we do not really have like fashion schools in Nigeria.
Fashion.
So
Yes.
yeah. Yeah, so I decided to enroll there, and yeah, so that's where I learned like pattern drafting. I learned to do illustrations. I learned the business of fashion. So even right now, I can definitely do like the base pattern draft. Like I can pattern draft like a shirt or a pair of pants and all of that stuff, and just like try to modify it to any kind of design that you want because I kind of learned how to do that there. But fast forward to 1 year later, that was around COVID, I think. COVID-19 definitely happened, and like they chased everybody back to school, and they chased everybody away from school back to their houses because there was like the lockdown. But during that time, whilst they had told us to go back home, I didn't go home. I traveled with a friend to Port Harcourt, right? And
Wow.
yes, it was supposed to be like a very small visit because I think he had work he needed to do. So once we got there, I think a week later, the governor of Port Harcourt like shut down Port Harcourt and was like, "Oh, nobody's going in, nobody's coming out. If you're already here, you are trapped. If you're outside, you're trapped, right? Or you can't go in or out, right?" So what was supposed to be for like a weekend turned into like 3 months, and it was, a very, very long experience for us. But during that time, we decided to try to do something for ourselves, right? So I would enroll as a person, as one of the fellows for Jobberman, and then I remember
Wow.
also doing Google digital skills analytics training, just like, build myself before school resumes. But whilst I was doing that, I was also reaching out to a few magazines and publications because my sewing machine, for example, was back in Benin City and I didn't have access to all of those and I wanted to sort of like make money. And I realized that, like, well, I have been writing for a very long time, so I might as well just try to see how I can write again until I go
Mhm.
back to start, sewing clothes and giving to people. And the same for my friend as well. My friend used to own a blog back in 2015. And it's very interesting because now my friend Robert Solomon, I'm always talking about him in whenever I'm saying this story, I'm always talking about him because like the things just aligned. If I hadn't gone to Port Harcourt, I don't think I'd be doing what I was doing now. If COVID didn't happen,
Mhm.
I don't think I'd be doing what I was doing now. Right. So my friend Robert Solomon, for example, who had his blog, has currently worked with a plethora of magazines. He has consulted for Google, he has consulted for Spotify, he has written for Rolling Stone. There's just like so much going on for him now, and I'm
Wow.
honestly excited for him. But we both, started to write about, we sort of like started to pitch to different magazines and publications about, hi, so my name is Daisy, I'm Nigerian. I want to write about this for you, yada yada yada. And it was around that time too I joined LinkedIn. I remember joining LinkedIn in 2020 when I was still in Port Harcourt because like people were saying so much about the platform, and I even remember paying for a class to learn how to use LinkedIn. By the way, so that's kind of how it happened for me. I began to reach out to a few magazines and publications, and that's how I got the role of being the first African fashion editor for Vanity, which is a Europe-based magazine.
Praise Martin.
Yeah, I had told them that like, hi, I've seen your magazine. It is very Eurocentric. I want us to, see if we can bring in a new audience. Let's sort of like write about African fashion because African fashion has, sort of like begun to pivot, and we wanted to like, have a conversation around that. And
Mhm.
luckily, the editor in chief was very excited for it. So that's kind of how I began to write about that. And like, they really helped me build my portfolio as well. I was also now very active on LinkedIn, trying to like post my experiences, trying to post whatever it is. I was just like, just doing it, winking it, honestly. But that's how I got like people reach out
I
to
don't,
me.
I don't, I like the fact that you are openly saying winging it, but
Yeah.
the from the perspective of an audience, it looks deliberate.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So as much
Yeah.
as you think you're winging it, we're taking deliberate steps. So
Mm.
well, winging
Yeah.
it, yeah.
No, to be fair, I knew for a fact that like, well, I didn't know about any other industry, right? I have always wanted to work in fashion anyway, and I thought I was going to be a designer. So I went on there, and everything I was talking about was about fashion and writing and all of that. So that's what I was doing. I was just really focused on the industry, but I was also winging it and just like writing, whatever comes to mind and hoping that something pops up, which it did because I remember when the person who brought me on to work with Business in Nigeria reached out to me and they were like, "Hi, we see your work. Business Day isn't really covering so much about fashion. Do you want to be like a weekend columnist for us?" That's really how I got the role of like being a weekend columnist, which also really opened doors for me as well because then I got to reach out to a number of designers. I spoke with a number of people. I worked with a few different people to give the piece a lot more depth and nuance, and that's really just
Mhm.
how it started. So after that, I began to like really start reaching out to a few magazines and publications. I think I remember also that was around the time I wrote my debut piece for Native Magazine.
Wow.
And I think it was also around that time I also worked with Culture Custodian. But that's really how the journey started, from me loving how my mom used to dress to owning a fashion brand, and then leaving that and saying, I actually want to write now. Writing is very interesting. This is really where I want to be. And I just like, locked up my fashion brand because I did start a fashion brand at some point, but I was just like, I think I like where I'm currently at. And that's really how the journey has been for me so far.
I loved how you rounded this up by saying that you have actually grown. Like it's evident from your mom influencing you without her being conscious of it, with
Yeah.
sisters, passion, and your dad focusing on a skill that Others would probably would have just said, "Oh, they're just he has to read now. He has to learn how to read. What's the big deal?"
Mm.
To you venturing into internships at fashion events, to you making choices about learning fashion, even though it's pretty much just you winging it in court, and then eventually meeting a friend who sort of helped you clarify things. I
Mm.
think that for professionals or for fashion talents or creatives in this side of the world, we usually just stop at that. Oh, my mom loves fashion. I love how my mom used to dress. I'll go to a fashion school, learn how to cut and sew, and then they get stuck. Usually, many people get stuck right there. They don't know
Mm.
how to move out of that space. Most importantly, they don't know how to quit that particular thing they are doing to explore new things because it's considered like a taboo. There's this subtle stigma attached to, you're closing your business. Ah, so
Yeah.
what are you doing? I want to write. Write, qua. Like,
Mm.
for who? What is
Mm.
writing? When,
Mm.
why don't you leave your business running? People don't easily accept that kind of change, especially for entrepreneurial skills like fashion, like hairdressing, most of these creative roles. When a person says, "Oh, I want to leave this to explore this," it seems a bit, it's hard for people to adjust to. And I commend you for that because it sounds easy as you're saying it, but this has taken years.
Yeah.
It's taken years. You quitting this, trying this, going there. Okay, this not working. It sounds easy now, but truth
Yeah.
is, I can relate because that's how I've also journeyed, in a
Mm.
similar way to discovering what I really want to do. So I really, really love the fact that you shared that with us, and I'm hoping talents who would watch this would also take note of this. It's okay to try something new in the same industry. If your talent or your interest is in embroidery, like I met someone recently who was like, "I just love embroidery." I met another young girl who says, "I just really want to make underwears." And I'm like, wow, that's rare in
Yeah.
Nigeria, in Africa. Like, why are you not pursuing it? Well, that's their reaction. They're like, there's no motivation, there's no backing, there's no accolade, or there's no inspiration to pursue. But really, if you did not pursue this, I don't think we would have you sharing your experience with for people who are probably interested in doing the same thing. So thank you for sharing that with us. So I'm gonna ask you, after all that you have experienced before venturing into writing, what skills did you transfer? If you get what I mean, like the
Yeah.
experiences you garnered in the fashion space,
Mm.
what skills did you develop and what skills did you transfer into this field or niche that you are now focused on?
Yeah, interesting question. Honestly, a very great question. I think for me, it will most likely be three skills at most, although there were like others, right? And one of the first one, honestly, is definitely communication. And I see that a number of like young brands do not really understand how to better communicate their brands to the people that are working with, right? So, say for example, there is a pitch contest going on. You have a fashion brand. Say the winner goes home with like 2 million naira. It is really now up to you to now start to learn to communicate your brand to like the board of directors or like anybody who's staying there, but like nobody's going to buy your vision unless you sell it, and if you're unable to sell it, then that's really just what it is. And I think that's one of the best things that I have really learned from that, like learning how to communicate my brand and also learning how to communicate my ideas. Because for me now, I send out pitches, right? So I have to learn to communicate my ideas. I have to learn to like really ensure that like my thoughts are in a nice way that is written very seamlessly for so the editors who I send these emails to see them and are interested in wanting to work with me. I hope that
Right.
makes sense. That's one.
Yes.
The second thing for sure is definitely marketing, and I think that that's something I'm still doing even on LinkedIn.
I
If
can
you own a business, forget all of those like, oh yeah, I'm not really a marketer. I'm somebody who stays at the back door, which is fine. But also like you have to learn to market. Like you're literally your best advertiser. You're your best advertisement. Like nobody's going to sell you more than you sell yourself. I promise you. right? So you have to learn that. Like, I think that's something I've also learned with, like, owning my brand, for example. I had to start reaching out to people like, hi, what's up? Like, I can make this for pants for you. I could do this for you. And with my writing, which I have now gone onto social media platforms to like really try to market myself as somebody who is like really good at like, writing about fashion, writing about culture, writing about beauty. These are some of the things that I literally had to do to sort of like position myself because I have seen it
Mm.
a marketing point for me, right? With the number of people, I generally do not think that I have actively even applied for jobs. I mean, before I got to the UK, because here I'm literally applying for jobs, like I'm never lying. But back in Nigeria, I didn't even like actively apply for jobs. Like if you go on my LinkedIn, all of those roles that you will see, I didn't even reach out to those people like, hi, I want to oh, this is my CV or whatever. Like I never really did that. I think it was just Vanity team that I sent the emails to like, hi, what's up? Like I want to do this and I want to do that. Like, what do you think? The other people have literally reached out to me on LinkedIn, and like most of the things that they're saying is like, oh, your marketing, like how you marketing yourself is really great, and like we really want to work with you and stuff. And I think it's such an interesting thing for people to learn. And another thing for me is definitely like how much of an attention I pay to certain details, right? Because I work in journalism, and to be honest, every
Mhm.
story you may think of covering has already been covered, and that's the honest truth.
Mm.
Like, think of like pair of glasses, afro hair, anything you want to see, like people have already done that. So you need to start looking for like the nitty gritty of things, this the smallest of the things that you think those people might have missed, the tiniest of the details. Those are the things that you really want to pick out and then elaborate more on it for the editors that you're working with, for them to really, be interested and want to pick that piece. And like obviously that also ties into fashion, for example. Like you want to ensure like the line. I remember when I went to like the fashion school that I said to you, if it is not straight, my what's it called, like the leader would literally use the he would literally rip off the same and tell you to do it again, even if it's just a
You to
tiny,
repeat it.
yeah,
Yeah.
as long as he sees it, he's opening it back up and like you're saying it all over again. If you do not iron properly, if there's just like a little, squeeze on the fabrics, or you're going back to get that fixed. So he really ensured that like everything was perfect. And I think that obviously with paying so much attention to that, I had to also learn to look at the smallest of details for stories
Mm.
to write about. So we want to write about African fashion business. What else is there to write about? They've talked about sustainability. They've talked about fast fashion. They've talked about so many things. What else are people
What's
missing?
new?
Yeah, what else is new? Like, how do you now bring that on? So that's one of the major things I think I have learned so far in doing all of this. You have to learn to communicate your brand. You have to learn to market it yourself, and you also have to look at like the tiniest of details for you to elaborate on.
You said three things that pretty much every entrepreneur, newbie, when they say this generation is more skill based, it's no
Mhm.
longer about job based. It's
Yeah,
like jobs,
it's way more
but
than that. Yeah,
yeah, it's now more about skills. What can you do? And you see, these three things you mentioned are pretty much soft skills. They might not be, you don't
yeah,
hold
like
right
technical
skills,
skills are
you
like
can't
yeah,
do, but they are so important. Communicating, communication skills like everything. If you are poor with communication, you are literally going to have issues working with people. Let's not
hmm,
even go as far as building a brand, getting jobs, and all that. Marketing, I for one, I'm still on that journey as well. It was at the start of the year I said, you know what, LinkedIn and I are going to be best buddies. I'm going
yeah,
to push it. I'm going to give it all it takes because I realized that we easily assume that fashion is not professional, like it's not a profession per se. We are easily, is it dissuaded with the fact
yeah,
that okay, everything we're doing on this side of the world is about creativity. We forget there's a business aspect to it. There's
true.
so much more to it, and marketing is at the core of it. And for marketing, you need communication skills. To communicate well, you need to have great attention to details. It's still intertwined. Like
Yeah, they're all
they're
connected.
so infused, and I love the fact that you mentioned those three things because any young person who can nail these three things, you can stay on almost any job in the fashion space.
Yeah,
You can
and I have
excel.
to And I have to include one final thing. I think,
Okay.
yeah, one final skill I know I definitely have learned is researching. Um,
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that some people, especially when they want to open a brand, it is very exciting for them. Yes, I want to build my brand, I want to do this, but like sometimes like you do not take the time to really research on the market. Like what's your audience? Who are you trying to build this thing for?
Right.
Right? We've seen a lot of menswear designers, we've seen a lot of women's wear designers, we've seen a lot of androgynous designers, we've seen kids wear, we've seen everything. So
Everything.
yeah,
What
like
makes
what
you think
exactly are you doing? Yeah. And like with some of my favorite brands, for example, with Tebi Magugu, for example, whom you would see that like with each of his collections, he's always trying to tell his story. He's always going back in time and
back
trying
to
to
his
like
roots,
on the South
history,
African
yeah,
culture. Yeah, exactly.
culture.
Yeah, so like those are things that I think people really need to understand. International Womack Prize Awards winner, for example, Adeju Thomson Lagos Space Program. Like if you literally read through their entire brand ethos and like all of the vision and mission, you see that like they go back in time to talk about like
Mm,
things that are currently happening in the Yoruba culture. How does that tie into the present day reality of the fashion industry and like existence in itself? It is always very interesting for you to research on that. And like with me, for example, whom I have to write, right? I have to go back and like see what stories have been covered, what stories are not much covered, who do I have to reach to right now with Beauty Matter, whom you currently know I work with. Like there's like so many articles that I have to write about now, and I have my tab full with like
because
loads of
you're
brands
researching.
because I have to look for like the people who are the best fit for like these stories and stuff. Those are I think skills. That's one of the skills I also think that like I really had to transfer, and I think that young fashion owners really need to learn on like if you're building your brand, like who exactly are you building that for? Who are your audience and who are you
I think
researching?
I would say, Elvis, that's not just young fashion business owners. If you're
Mm-hmm.
in the fashion space, you've
Sure.
got to have research as a skill.
Yeah.
Whether you are in content, whether you are in writing, you're a writer,
Mm-hmm.
whether you're a brand owner,
For
whether you're an
example.
employee,
Yeah.
pretty much need research skills. Like
Mm.
it is underrated and it is, however, it is essential. Like the fashion space pretty much is like a continuum. It's
Mm.
a circle. It keeps going. Of course, it evolves in different ways, but if you look at the intricacies, like the details of what we see every day, it's not different.
Sure.
There are new concepts that are being added to what has existed before. So there's
Mm-hmm.
no way you can rule out the need to understand what existed before, even if
Mm.
it's just last year, right? So research is at the core of what young people in fashion space need to know. And you tend to see that most of them stick to social media
Yeah.
and they are so comfortable with just imitating what's right in front of them. And
Yeah.
that's why when you talk about Tebe, I think that I don't want to use the word Gen Z. I don't want to categorize, but
Yeah.
that it's easy to assume that those millennials and people from the later years have sort of understood the role of culture. They
Yeah.
understand the role of going back into history. The tales by moonlight feeling of trying to find out more. But you see, the younger generation, they need to know.
Mm.
So sometimes when I interact with them, I realize that they are not aware. It's not a thing that is done deliberately. They are not doing it to spite the industry or to spite the media. But to them, what's before them is what's before them. Let's use what's before us. They're just
Yeah.
not used to it. So I think research. I like the fact that you have added the fourth thing, and I think research is essential. It's like a fiber. It's like the thread that holds virtually everything together. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Um, so let me ask you, how have you then, because you've talked about how you ventured into fashion, how you eventually found your niche, but let's talk about your personal development trajectory. How did you know what you needed? First of all, I wrote this ebook. I think you did comment on the ebook.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
Thing I wanted to do with that ebook was that I actually wanted to focus more on introspection. I wasn't really ready to talk about, oh, this is what you need, this is who you need to meet or connect with. I wanted to focus on the need to know yourself, ask yourself questions, right? Because for anyone who has transitioned in the fashion space, they've done a lot of introspection.
Yeah.
So, how did you ask yourself the questions that brought you to this point where you knew, listen, the next thing for me now is to find myself a program to study in the UK, and this is why I need to take this program. This is what it would do for me. It's not just for me, I don't see you. I know money is key, right? But right in the middle of all that, personal development is also key. So how
Yeah.
did you make those decisions? How did you realize the skills you needed to develop? Okay, first of all, what skills were lacking, and how did you identify where and what skills to bring on?
Yeah, I think one major skill I wish I was able to really hone on when I was back in Nigeria would definitely be networking.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm a natural homebody. Like, I don't really like to go out. Like, leave me alone. I would,
Writer's thing.
yeah, I would honestly stay in my room. I'm literally in my room now. Like, I would honestly stay in my room. And like I always tell people, if you give me network, like if you give me like a strong connection, if you give me light, like there's power, and if you give me food, I would be on
Like
an island just for an entire
I'm
year.
calling yourself.
Yeah, and I would not even care, to be honest, because like these are things that like these are things that make me really comfortable. And I think it got so much to a point where it really got in my head that I didn't really go out anymore, right? And then sometimes like when you go out, because you haven't gone out much and like you haven't had much interaction, the very few people that you talk to, you get to have very awkward conversations with them,
Conversation with them.
if that
Mm.
makes sense, right? Like, because like you would
Mm.
not know what the right thing to say is. You would not know how to approach. Some people might just be having a conversation like, so how do I go back into it? Maybe you're talking with Rhoda,
Mm.
for example. But how do I get into that? Like, I
How to
wouldn't know how to
be a
even
part
do
of
that.
that conversation.
Yeah, because like I haven't really gone out, so I'm unsure how to like really delve into that. And I think that's one of the major skills I wish I was able to have, because like as much as like we keep talking about like what goes on in Nigeria, like Nigeria is always having loads of events, right? With from October down, like there's like loads of events currently happening, and like a lot of professionals are really in some of these spaces. With Lagos Fashion Week, for example, I remember one time when I had to interview somebody for an article, I couldn't even meet them face to face. Like I had to go to their
Oh,
Instagram
right.
first. Yeah, because I was like, "Hi, my name is Deji. I'm a fashion journalist. I want to interview you for like this story, yada yada yada." Right. So like I had to introduce myself to them first so that it would be easy for me to say,
To
"Hi, I
deflect.
just
Yeah.
started you on here. This, that." So that was really my approach at the time. And even when I saw them, it was still so weird. Right.
Mm.
So I wish that was one of the major skills that I learned. And I have found that like over time with my migration, for example, it definitely really level the field. And that's because like with the people that I currently study with, like obviously the UK is like a destination country, and that means that like
Yeah.
almost everybody's an immigrant, like almost everybody's new. So I just saw that like, well, everybody's starting out as much as I am. So
Take
with
advantage
me,
of that.
yeah, I'm going to take advantage of this, and I'm going to like really put in the work. And this is not even in any way trying to blow my trumpet or anything, but like I am literally one of the most popular persons in my class right now. Like you wouldn't even say Elvis or even show them my face, and like nobody will. People don't get recognized, right?
That's a
And I was
good
like,
thing.
yeah, which is good. I was like, this honestly is a clean slate for me. I want to learn to start reaching out to people. I want to learn to start having friends, because I really didn't. I had like just two people or three people that I was like, oh, these are my friends back in Nigeria. And I really wanted to like, broaden that. Maybe not like friends, but also like, acquaintances that could easily bounce ideas off of each other. Oh, something is happening in this art gallery. Do you want to come with me and stuff like that? So I really wanted that for myself this time. And I think that's like one of the major skills that I had to learn over time to really be in. But it is still not perfect, to be honest, because like I still
Yeah, it's
get
a journey.
I
Yes.
still get social anxiety. Like I'm not even joking. At some point, I would run.
Imagine.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, I have to go home. Like I can't. I don't want to see her anymore. Like I run. But yeah, I think that's like one of the major skills that I have had to learn. With transitioning, I think it there comes a point in someone's life where you get to understand that, oh, it is time for me to move on from this, right? And I think that happened with me back in school with, because I had a brand, and like I was also like writing, and I just found it so difficult to balance both of them with the people that I was working with as clients that I so close for, right? I wasn't even really getting the kind of feedback that I wanted, and it just felt like, well, the money that's even coming even isn't as much, you know what I mean? Because like I paid heftily for fashion school. It's a very popular school back in Benin City, Benjamin Go School of Fashion. Like you could easily check it. It's like one of the most popular schools back in Benin, and like
Mm.
it's very expensive. And around that time, I was self-sponsoring. Even right now, I am still self-sponsoring, right? So it is very difficult for you to navigate that. And I thought, if I am paying so much money for this, at least like if clients are going to stress me, also like really give me so much money, like all of this back and forth was honestly starting to stress me out. And I was like, maybe I should focus more on writing and see where that takes me, right? And I began to get a lot more nice feedbacks from that. And honestly, I just found comfort in writing. It was just very interesting for me to interview people because I have found that like I like to communicate, like I like to have conversations, right? They may not be physical conversations, but like if I sit with you in front of a camera, we would have a very great time, unless you don't want to have a great time, but like we would talk and like we would interact. And I found that like when I speak with designers, they share a part of their experiences that sometimes most people are unaware of. And for me, that's a step in the right direction, right?
Mm.
Because oh now I'm interviewing Adebayo Kalawa, for example, who has had amazing wins, right? Like he's worked with the who is who, like he has done all of that. Right. And then he's telling me how he started. He's telling me how he got here. He's telling me what he has to do. Those are words of inspiration for me. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I really am enjoying and I'm having a good time with like these people that I'm interacting with. So I think that's kind of one of the things like made it really clear and apparent to me that like I would love to focus more on this because it gave me access to a number of people that I honestly otherwise didn't think I would have access to,
Yeah.
right? So at some point, you get to know that like maybe it is time to pivot. And I wasn't really scared. And I think it's one of the major things that holds people back, the fear. Oh my God, what if it doesn't work? Then move on to the next, right? What if they don't want to reach out to me? What if they don't want to work with me and stuff? And I would tell you today, right? When I was still back home and I was still like, trying to reach out to certain people and certain designers and like they wouldn't reach back to me, I am so shocked that right now the number of people that I see on my LinkedIn and the number of people who send me emails are like some people that like I really wanted to work with at some point and like they were turning me down and now they're like, oh, we see what you're doing. Do you want to come on here and just like do one or two things with us? Right. I think it is such an important thing for people to understand that like sometimes leave the fear alone and just like when you start to
Mm.
feel that like it's time to pivot, then just do it. That's really just what happened for me, right? Because even with school, for example, like I said to you, I'm self-funding and I have to constantly think about, oh my God, I have tuition to pay. We understand the current struggles now with naira to pounds, like not dollars, pounds. It is very big. And you're
Yes.
thinking, to yourself, "Yeah, how do I do that? Like, how do I, but also if you stay, you would not necessarily understand how to navigate
Oh,
that experience,
yeah.
right? And to be fair, like I kind of had backup one or two plans there about like, oh, if this doesn't do, then this will work and this will work, and like all of that, yeah, all of that combined really just what helped me in propelling myself. But I think it's very important for you to understand: is it time to pivot? If it doesn't happen, what's next? But if you continue to stay back and not necessarily want to do it because like, oh, I find a lot more comfort here, or yeah, this looks like it's working for me now, it may honestly be hard for you to move from that.
I like how you have shared this because um that statement, maybe it's time to pivot, is something that I've heard so often when I'm
Mm,
coaching. I hear talent say things like, so I'm doing this, I don't know which one to choose, but my mind is really drawn to this, or I really think I just want to quit my job, but then
yeah,
how do I pay my bills? So,
mm,
the fear is there, but the
yeah.
truth is the fear would always be there. It would always be there. So
And you
you
wouldn't
need
even find fulfillment in what you're doing. Like if you don't even like, you would just be hating your job more and more. Okay, it's paying my bills, but like,
exactly.
am I really enjoying this process?
And I think that if you truly pursue what you're interested in, the struggle or the difficulties that come with the changes
Yeah,
becomes fun. It's not
yeah,
it's not gonna hurt as much as you staying on the same spot, because
mm,
it becomes like an adventure because you made the choice. You
yeah,
know this is what you want to do. So if working more hours to pay your bills is what you have to do, well, I love it anyway. So why not?
yeah,
So I kind of think that truly, when it's time to move, when it's time to
yeah.
pivot,
You would
you should
know.
know.
Yeah, and this is not in any way. Oh, I'm sorry. I
It's
think.
like, no,
Yeah,
go
I
ahead.
just feel like this is not in any way like trying to like tell people to like, oh, like quit your job if you're not finding
Mhm.
fulfillment, like quit your job, because like sometimes some of these statements can be misconstrued, and like that's not
Yes, and
anyways.
misleading.
Yeah, so like you would know. I guess for me, like that's really what just happened. I was like, yeah, I think I
Introspection
want
is
to realize
key.
now. Yeah.
Mhm. Introspection is key from what you're saying. It's like you
Mm,
knowing yourself and
mm,
knowing when, listen, I think I've had enough here. I remember when I decided to pivot to close down my business. I
mm,
had just launched a new collection about a month before. And then when I woke up that morning, I said to my spouse, I said, listen, I'm moving. He said, like, yeah, you've been saying that for a while. I said, no, no, no. It's not about saying that for a while. Like, I'm moving.
it's happening now.
You
Yeah.
know, and it wasn't a conversation. He saw it
Mm,
in my actions. He saw it in the moves I made. And for me, it was liberating. I wasn't sure what the next month was going to be about, what the next year was going to be about, but I knew that this is the path I really want. I have searched thoroughly, and this is where I really want to be. This is what I want to do, and I'm going to pursue it. And truly speaking, despite the challenges, the hurdles, I am still happy where I am. I am content with the fact that I made that choice because it's opened me up to knowing myself, building myself, overcoming a lot of fear, building stamina. Because what happens is that once you conquer that fear, it's easier to
yeah.
take on, you know, the other set of fear that will come are going to be a lot more easier to overcome. For
Yeah.
example, so I pivoted and then I had to face the fear of reaching out to people to say, this is what I do. That's a lot easier than even moving in the first place.
Yeah.
So I think truly introspection is key. And I intending to make my ebook free for a season because it's like people don't understand what's in the book. I
Yeah.
am not sharing anything like do this and do this. I'm saying, listen, sit down and take account. Sometimes it's easier to build a career for yourself
Mm,
when you know yourself, when you have evaluated yourself. And I feel like you've done that. Like, not I feel, I see that. So when you make statements like, for me, I knew statements like that is not about what people have said to you. It's
yeah.
about
No, it's like a you thing. Yeah, because like even if somebody says move and like you're not ready to move, like you would still be there, right?
exactly.
It's a deliberate action, like a deliberate decision from your end, to be honest.
So I was going to ask you now that you are a writer and a journalist, and how have you managed with the introduction of AI tools, AI writing tools? Sometimes I think about it in my head, I'm like, journalists or writers
Yeah.
or editors, or how are they coping? Are they leveraging this tool? Is it an enemy? Is it a friend? How are they managing?
Mm. No, again, great question, to be honest. Long and short answer is I genuinely do not care about AI because
Hmm.
like I use it. AI is literally my friend. Like I'm never gonna lie to you. Like I ChatGPT is literally my friend at this point, right? I see them as tools that you can use. I don't see them as like things that are going to like come take your job or whatever. And why I said that's a very interesting question is I remember one of the courses that I had to do for one of the like courses. Is that what they call it? Yeah, one of the courses I had to do anyway for school, and it was about like professional development plan. I'm just going to say that like I got a distinction in that course, which is cool. But it was about like laying out what you want to do after school. What is that role going to look like 5 years time and all of that. And like obviously everybody knows that for me, like I really want to delve into like fashion journalism more. Like I really want to like really go into the fashion
Hmm.
aspect, the writing aspect of fashion and stuff. So it was quite clear to me, and then one of the things that I had to do in that presentation was talk about what the future of that role looks like, and like what are the skills that you need for you to be able to, ensure that like you are ready for the future of that job role. I hope that makes sense, right? And so
Yes.
for me, one of the major things that would influence the future of fashion journalism is definitely technology, right? And by that, I don't mean only AI. Technology can even mean social media, right? We've seen how print is dying. Like nobody's really buying print anymore. Everybody has gone back to like
Oh, I
online.
miss it.
Yeah, exactly. Me too. Everybody has gone back to like online. Everybody's now like they would rather subscribe to like a Substack or a Beehive newsletter. They'd rather subscribe to like a magazine that they're familiar with. Some have even gone on like social media, for example, to now even be like news anchors or whatever. Like people now go on social media to like spread news. That is also part of journalism, and I hope you understand that, right? So these are some of the things that I had written in my presentation, like, oh, this is what the future looks like. And then I also wrote AI and all of that stuff. And in order to, be to ensure that like you're employable during the future of those skills, like in the time of those future roles, you need certain skills. And like with those certain skills, you need to start to learn about like, how to, I guess, write certain commands for ChatGPT, for example, how to learn about blockchain, how to learn about
Mm.
AI, how to learn about VR and AR, how to learn about QR codes. They're just some things that you really need in order to be able to be employable for the future, right? All of this, honestly, is to tell you that I don't think that AI is here. Like it will definitely influence. It's like I use it honestly. Sometimes I get really uninspired, and I'm like, what stories? Like I'm thinking what I do sometimes. Like I'm just like, hi, something, something, something. What stories do you think about African fashion is currently not being covered? Right? And then it goes and gives me like a lot of things, and I'm like, oh, actually, like I haven't really seen this. Maybe I should pitch this to this editor. Maybe I should go on to research about this, right? So like, it is my friend. I honestly do not see it as a competition. I think it becomes a problem
Mm.
when people think that like, yeah, it's coming to like. I really don't think it's coming to take any of my jobs because like, as
Yeah.
much as I try, there's still I'm a human and I'd write as a human. And like no matter how you look at it, like sometimes when you see something that is very ChatGPT coded, you will be
You would
able to
know.
identify it. Yeah. So
So I think that what I hear you say is that for fashion um, newbies who are exploring writing careers, who want to be
mhm.
journalists, AI is a friend, not
It's your
necessarily
friend. Yeah.
enemy.
It's not your thing. Yeah.
Exactly. Don't now rely 100%. I like what you
Yeah.
said. You pick AI's brain in quotes for the
Mm.
lack of better use of word, and you say what is not being talked about in this field in fashion, and then it gives you a plethora of options, and then you just look through and pick one that
Yeah.
interests you, and then
Yeah.
do your research, right? So it's like a
Mhm.
buddy, it's like a conversation buddy that's
Mm.
just helping you see through areas that you probably wouldn't have thought to
Mm.
look, right? So I think that yeah, AI writing tools are actually friends to journalists, and a lot of people have abused it, but I like the way you've clarified it because trust me, I've seen a lot of people abuse it
Yeah,
over.
I mean, same. Honestly, like people even had to start bringing in tools that would counter AI written materials, right? So if you write an article, for example, that is very AI or ChatGPT coded, sometimes they will take that material into a different tool, and then that tool is going to say, "Oh, this is AI written." Right.
Yeah,
And you don't want that, even for the sake of ethics, for example. Like, do I really want my name out there? Like, oh, Elvis is somebody who, wrote an entire piece with AI and then they were caught. And, like, like that really comes down on your credibility as a person. Like nobody wants to work with
true.
you. Yeah, and I don't think I want that for myself. I can't lie to you that I don't use it. Like I use AI every other day. It's literally always open on my tab. But yeah, I'm just on there like asking me certain questions. Where do you think I can
The
find
research
these
tool.
materials? Yeah, it's such a research tool for me. Like because I can't really go on Google Scholar, for example, and be reading every book I see on there. So like you can easily just ask you what book, what author wrote this, what wrote that, and then you go on there and just like do your research. It makes it easier. So yeah, it's something that supplements your work. At least for me, who does fashion writing, I don't know. Even if it comes to like VR, for example, or artificial intelligence, right? With like, you know how a lot of fashion brands now are starting to like infuse technology into their
Yeah.
retail stores and all of that. I think these are things that like they complement you. They make your work easier. That's honestly how I see it. They make it easier for me. I don't think you're here to take my job, honestly, because even if people are being laid off and then editors are saying, okay, we're going to use AI or ChatGPT to write this thing, they still need somebody who is going to edit it because like there's no way they're doing a copy and paste onto
Yeah,
their
it has to be original. There still got to
yeah,
be some level of originality. I like
yeah.
that. I like that. I'm so glad to know that you are in the UK. And I just had to ask myself, as a career coach, I've encountered a lot of young people who will say, I want to study XYZ. And from personal experience, I remember this time I got a scholarship, right, to study in Italy, but I did not have the funds
Yeah.
to sponsor the trip or for accommodation. So
Mhm.
I had to forego the scholarship. This was about maybe like 14 years ago. Now
Ah.
I look back and I'm like, I'm glad that I didn't put myself under a lot of pressure.
Mm.
Even though I wanted it that bad, I didn't have the resources. But in today's world, things are much different, like so different in terms of how you can leverage opportunities. So I want you to kind of share with us, how did you choose your school? What course are you studying? And what processes did you go through that is obviously different from how education is in Nigeria? Really,
Yeah.
because I think that the lack of information on things like this has sort of discouraged a lot of young people from even exploring. When people think fashion, I have not really seen a lot of young people say, "Oh, I want to go. I want to study in this so country. I want to take this course." Right? But when you see other people who want to take masters program, you know, they are flying all over the world. But when it comes to fashion, we're still so local in our thinking when it comes to developing ourselves. So, please share with us, how did you decide the school? What course are you studying? And what was the process like? Was it tedious? Is it something that is teachable or something you can learn on your own? Just share that part with us.
Yeah, I'll answer the last part first. And it is honestly something you can do yourself, at least for me. I definitely did the entire thing myself. I think the only time I brought in someone to help me was during my visa application. And that's
Mm,
because like I've never applied. I've literally never traveled outside of Nigeria. The UK was like the first time I got on a plane. Even within Nigeria, I've never been on a plane before. So I didn't want to make a mistake with my application. So I had to bring in somebody, and that's somebody I
fair
know.
enough.
Yeah, like an agent, because like he went to my school. He was a year ahead of me, and we kind of had like a conversation. He was from Delta State, where I'm from, so we already had like a working relationship. So I just texted him on WhatsApp like, "Hi, I currently got admission into this. Like, I need you to help me with like my visa. Obviously, I pay because like it's a service, right?" So that's like the only thing. I think it is very, it's especially with coming to the UK. I don't think it is very difficult for you to navigate, getting courses or whatever here in the UK. I think it was when I was checking schools in the US and in Canada. I was like, what? This looks like stress, honestly, because like I couldn't navigate the website. And then I think one thing that really tipped me off was the fact that like you have to pay an application fee. I'm like, no, yeah, like why am I paying like $150 to apply for
Just
a
to
school?
apply.
And I'm most likely not even getting anywhere. Like, would you refund me my money? You know what I mean? So I just
Right.
yeah, so that's why I really focus on the UK, and also because like I really wanted a time zone where I could easily communicate with people back home, right? With South America, for example, North America, for example, like the time is very different, and now it's like what 1 o'clock, and that will most likely be 7 a.m. there, and like I would not
Mm.
be able to have this coming on with my family and also with you, for example. We may have to like look for a time that works
It's
for both.
very difficult. Yeah, but difficult.
Yeah, so those are the things I consider as like, yeah, maybe I'll just focus on like Europe and then the UK because like schools here are quite easy to get into. I applied for a number of schools before I got my admission here. I had gotten admission the year before at Central St. Martin. Like I got to CSM. That was like the first time I applied, and it was during my interview where the course leader was like, "Oh, I'm gonna stop you here. Like, we want you here. Like, come to CSM." And I was really excited because obviously CSM is like one of the best fashion schools. Right, and
Mm.
that's because like I have done my research and I have checked on like like almost everybody who works as fashion editors or this or that, like almost all of them went to University of Arts
Yes.
London, either CSM or LCF, LCC, some really of these like popular campuses with UAL. But school fees was like £27,000 or 30 something thousand pounds. And I was like, wait, who is paying that? Like there's no way I would pay that. My father would not be able to bring that money, and I wasn't working as much to be able to do that. So I thought like apply for scholarship, but I didn't get in. And I remember telling somebody last week that it was most likely my fault because after applying, I went on to check on like what they really wanted, and I saw like some of the mistakes I made. And I'm just going to say that in case there are other people who are interested. Um,
Mm-hmm.
with writing your personal statement, for example, which I wrote perfectly. By the way, after your personal statement, they would ask you for, if you're applying for a scholarship, they'll ask you a few other questions. And then I just went onto my personal statement and I was just in like a copy and paste into, the thing. So it didn't seem like there was some kind of intentionality in wanting to get that money. And I think that was like one of the major things that made them say, oh no, we can't really give you that. And it really pained me because it was like £50,000. And like I really needed that. That would have covered so much. Right. So
Yeah.
just in case anybody who is interested in doing that, I think it is so important for you to separate your personal statements and whatever you're writing in your scholarship application form. So it makes sense. And that's kind of what I did with my current school, which is Nottingham Trent University. So I got like a £3,000 scholarship, and it honestly wasn't really much compared to like what some people got. I was very jealous of some people, like they really got money from this scholarship. But yeah, so I'm currently studying fashion communications MA. I went to that website and I saw a few of the courses that they had, and obviously I already had clarity on what I wanted to do, so it was quite easy for me to
Mm-hmm.
choose on the course.
Choose.
Yeah, I wanted to do fashion journalism or like fashion writing or even academic writing, but from the fashion industry
Fashionable.
standpoint. Yeah, and fashion communication definitely,
Covers.
communicated yeah to me because like I think there were other courses like luxury brand management. I didn't want to manage a brand. I think there were other courses like international fashion marketing, and then there's fashion something. We have like four courses anyway, but fashion communication definitely really was like an umbrella for what I wanted because it was all about like writing and like visual communication. So like people who wanted to do graphics could easily come on there. If you wanted to be a writer, you could come on there. If you wanted to do visual merchandise,
Mm.
you could come on there. It was quite easy. Um, with selecting the school though, I googled actually. I first googled. I was like best fashion schools in the UK, and then I saw some were very expensive to be honest. And then I think I even went to like this. I think it's called CEO World View something that has to do with like they will give you like the top best fashion schools.
Schools.
Yeah, they would rank it like, oh, this is the number one, this is the number two. So I also went on there and then I saw some of the schools. Um, I actually applied to a few. I knew that I wanted to do journalism, so I applied to like some schools, even though they had like a fashion department. I didn't apply to the fashion department because they didn't have anything about communication or journalism
Yeah.
there. Yeah, so I would apply to their regular journalism course.
Journalism
Yeah,
department. So,
and then now branch out into fashion during like my dissertation or any of that stuff.
yes.
So yeah, so I applied to University of Westminster. I got into there. I got into the school after my interview the following day. I applied to as for fashion for MA journalism, University of Westminster, and then I applied to University of Salford in Manchester, where they are international journalism something something. I also got there. I applied to University for the Creative Arts. I think the course then was for global something something. I can't really
Mm.
remember. I got in there and then I applied to Nottingham Trent University, where I'm currently at, MA Fashion Communications. And I felt that, like, this really just had it for me. And also because, like, the others, like, I didn't really get any scholarship on them. And then this was, like, a £3,000 scholarship. So it was definitely, and they all had, like, the
Business.
same amount. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, I was going to pick this. Also, something I considered was what the tuition deposit was. With
Mm.
NT currently at, the deposit was 3,000. I think now it's about 6,000. With the other schools, with University for the Creative Arts, for example, they were requesting 50%. So that was like £8,000. And I genuinely don't know where I'm going to get that money from. So that's why I left it. With the Manchester one, University of Salford, it was £5,000 deposit. And I didn't have that at the time, so I just left it. And then Westminster, I was really choosing between Westminster and this, right? That was in
Nothing.
London, which is a great place for you to school because like it's like schooling in Lagos, like opportunities and jobs, right? And the deposit was 4,000, but
Cost of
NT
living and all that.
3,000. Yes. And then they didn't give me scholarship for this, but I got a scholarship for this. I was like, you know what, I'm just like,
You have to weigh your options.
yeah, I had to like weigh. So that's like one of the words I wanted to use, like weighing your options to seeing what works best for you. Right. Like I'm not saying come to NTU or like come to Nottingham because
Yeah,
to be
you have to really think about
yeah,
your
there's still something that like
choices.
that makes it stand out with like London, for example. Like now I literally am still very jobless. By the way, like I have to say it. Thank God for
Yeah,
like, my freelance work and like for the other clients that I've worked with that are really giving me money. But like I cannot imagine being in London and like being jobless because like almost everything you could do in London as against being in Nottingham where, I think the city is even currently experiencing like a cost of living crisis. Right. So those are things that you really have to consider. How much is the school fees? How much is the deposit? What is the
yeah,
standing? And I think one thing that also helped me in choosing my school was going on to British Fashion Council and checking some of the schools that were part of British Fashion Council because like not every school is part of BFC. Right. So I had to check on there as well to see, oh, what schools are currently here. And I saw that like my three top choices, obviously NTU, Salford, and Westminster were also part of the school. So I just went for NTU, honestly, because of like, yeah, the £3,000 scholarship, and also because like it seemed to be like a dedicated course for me. Even though you didn't ask, but like I think one thing I most likely would have changed would have been to do like a more general journalism course and
right.
then major in, yeah, if I wanted to. I think that's like one of the major things because to be honest, like it is still a risk for me, quote and unquote. Like you're spending so much money on coming here, but you also have to consider what's next after you graduate, right?
Right.
Stay in the UK, like you need people who are going to sponsor your visa, like do fashion jobs sponsor visas, right? So like those are things that you have to consider. If I am coming here to do journalism, print is dying, like the media is laying off their staff. Is that a risk for me anyway, right? So those are things that you can have to consider in order to, make a decision that works best for you.
I think you've nailed it. This is actually my best part because it holds so much hope for young people.
Yeah.
You've literally and held them through the process of deciding whether or not to school abroad. If you're going to school
Mm,
abroad, these are the factors to consider. If you're choosing a school, look out for this, check
mm.
out this. And I think that this kind of information for people in fashion is key. We don't really have it. Other
Yeah,
we don't
true.
have it everywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
you rarely find people saying, "Oh, I want to do a nursing program. I'm struggling."
Yeah.
You
You
don't
would
hear that.
find everything. You would find
It's
it on
everywhere,
YouTube. Yeah.
But this for me is so important, and I cannot wait for people to share their feedbacks on this.
Mm.
And congratulations on getting a scholarship. That is also applaudable. Some people have to pay the entire tuition, but you got a scholarship. Just
Yeah.
to round up our session, I just wanted you to, have the floor and just talk from your heart to newbies. What are the things that you think that they need to take away from this or from you,
Mhm.
bearing in mind that, okay, see, I've been in this space for what, 5 years, 6 years as a journalist, and this is what I think you must hold in hand and keep in mind while you navigate the industry. So you have the floor, Elvis.
Yeah, thank you. I would say first of all is try to have your tribe. I think that really helped me. And I'm not saying like, have 15, 20 friends or, have like everybody, be a part of this or whatever. What I mean by that's like you need to start to like find people who are on the same mission and vision as you. And to be honest, like I am really grateful to friends like Robert Solomon. I'm grateful to friends like Chisom. Like I'm always calling two of their names because like they are really two of the people who really we sort of like navigated the entire freelance writing space together. My first article with OkayAfrica was the email of the editor was sent to me by Chisom. Like, it's like, oh, you just made your debut. Like, I really want to write for these people. Who did you send the pitch to? And then he sent me the email of the person, and I reached out to her. And like in less than what 2, 3, 4 hours, she reached out with me with a yes. I was like, oh, let's go for it. And I think that was the piece I interviewed Rhoda for OkayAfrica. That was like my first piece. And moving on from that, like I have written way more pieces for OkayAfrica than my friend has, right? So I think that like it is so important for you to have your tribe because like we will talk about. Can you hear me? Oof. She got out. I don't know if I am supposed to continue talking. Oh no.
Hi, Kachi. So I had a terrible network glitch. It just locked me out. I'm so
I'm
sorry.
sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. So you were
Okay.
talking about your interview with OkayAfrica, featuring Rhoda.
Okay, yeah, so that was the one I remember featuring Rhoda for. And I remember even like asking I remember that like I have written a lot more pieces for OK Africa than like my friend who even gave me the editor's email anyway. So it was just very interesting to, have somebody that you could bounce ideas off. Do you
Mm,
think it's something that they would like to see? Even with rates, for example, because like, sometimes some magazines wouldn't want to pay you as much as they would pay the other person. So before I
yeah,
even reach out to a magazine, for example, I'm asking my friend who has written for them, how much did they pay you? So I get to know how to give them my rate.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, should I increase it? Should I not increase it? And my friend is like, Kachi, tell them how much. Like, he's always like really pushing me to like talk to them about my rate. Like, you're no longer a small person in this industry. It's like, talk to them about it. And I think that's something that like people should understand. You need your community of people, and you also need not be scared, right? You want to, as much as you can, position yourself as somebody who knows what they're doing, so you have to act as such. And I think that's something that like people should really understand. With another advice though is to please enjoy the process and honestly not rush yourself into like, because I know when I started, I was like, oh my god, this person has written for this, has written for that, has done this,
Mm,
that. And I
what
just
was
started
the
in
old days?
2020. Yeah, the person I'm comparing myself with has been writing for 7 years before 2020. Like, what did I think that they would not have written for those people? Like, why am I comparing myself with those people? It took me a while, even till now, it still very much bothers me in full transparency how sometimes I can just be scrolling through social media and then somebody has made their debut on Vogue Business, for example, or on the New York
Right.
Times. I'm like, oh, I have been trying to write for these people. How did you get to write for them? You know what I mean? And then I see myself sinking back again into comparing. And then I'm reminding myself that, like, no, like, this started way before I did. Like, chill, Elvis. Like, you're trying, right? So I think what people have to understand, take away that need to compare your process with other people. Right, it's such a mistake, and I don't think like people. I think people should really learn to cut that out. Two more things I'd like to say though is that like just like tying to one of the points I have made with enjoying the process is also to, like try as much as you can to know that like you are really that person. I was telling one of my friends, I was like, remember that like you are that girl. Like I'm always saying it to myself, like, oh, you are really that girl, because like sometimes you keep there's this thing called like imposter syndrome, and it honestly sucks to be honest. Like, oh, I am not doing so much. Oh my god, my posts are not getting as much like. Oh my god, why am I writing for a local magazine when my friends are writing for like international magazines? You know what I mean? Sometimes like you don't do not be doing that. Imposter syndrome really, really sucks. And I know
Yeah.
that for example, was like when I started to write about that as well for on my LinkedIn, I know one of the editors at Business of Fashion reached out to me and like she wanted my thoughts on that. Right. So that's kind of how I got onto BOF as well. But like, it was just very interesting to see that like, oh, this is actually not even something that is just like a me thing. Like other people are also experiencing that as well.
Yes.
The last one I would want to say though is oh, I can't remember, but like enjoy the process. Do not bother yourself about imposter syndrome. Um, I can't remember, but I was what I used to replace that though is like do not be scared of like selling yourself and just like ensuring that
Yeah.
like you are really at that place, honestly. And it still
Exactly.
definitely turns into imposter syndrome. But I remember that sometimes I'll go on my LinkedIn and I'm like, do people think I'm talking too much? Like, am I making so much noise? You know what I mean? But like I have said to you before, like we've established, like you are a marketer and like you have to market yourself. And if that means that I have to be the loudest person, by all means I would honestly do that. So and hell, I'm even seeing results. Like I'm seeing people message me on a daily wanting to work with me. We had a
Mm,
meeting yesterday, and like one of the CEO literally was like, Elvis, you're literally a LinkedIn influencer at this time. Like you write so well, you do this, and then one of the my colleagues unmuted her mic. She's like, yeah, like when she sees certain posts that she doesn't read them, but when she sees my posts, like she stays and then she like reads everything. Those are the things that I really want people to understand. That trust me, you're not. If anything, you're not loud enough to be honest. Like
Mm.
sell yourself, like market it, do that.
I like this part because it sort of resonates so well with me.
Yeah.
Um, So currently, what we do is so new and so niche
Mm.
because everybody's
Sure,
saying
sure. I agree.
you're doing HR. I said yes, but for fashion. Let's be clear. I'm not
Yeah.
interested in any other industry for now.
Mm.
Maybe a
Mm.
few other creative spaces, but fashion is my core, right? And very soon we want to launch an app. We're launching it soon. We're launching a bridge program, and the program is pretty much to help young people have introductory experiences into what journalism is, business management, and all of that. And at times I'm like, God, are you sure you're right to do this? Are you sure you're not one? But lately, I just had to tell myself, yes, you are. Don't bother about all of these other thoughts flying around your head. Just do it.
Yeah.
And you are one of those. Let me give you a feedback so you remember. I look forward to seeing your posts. Do you see it? For me, I don't need to know you as a person to sort
Yeah.
of you as my tribe. So I have
Mm.
like this digital tribe, people that when I'm on LinkedIn and I see their posts, I'm like, these
Yeah.
are my.
I swear.
Do you
Yeah.
get what I mean? These are people from my tribe, from my industry, from my
Mm.
place. They know where it pinches. They know the issues. It's a different feeling when you're reading posts of writers from the US or the UK. But when I'm reading works or articles or write-ups from people in my community, from my town, from my
Mhm.
place, it is soothing. It is encouraging. So this is a feedback to you. Please don't stop writing. And yes,
I
you're not
hope
loud
not.
enough. You've been so loud that we've heard you, and
Yeah.
there's still a lot of young people that need to hear it, which is why you're the very first person we're bringing on the spotlight.
I
Um,
appreciate that.
yes, you are. I literally told my team, people need to hear this guy.
Mhm.
People need to listen to him. He has something to say, and there are young people who are attempting or who have an interest in journalism or writing, but they've settled for content creation. They've settled
Yeah.
for social
Mhm.
media marketing.
Mhm.
But there's so much more they can push for. And seeing you will sort of serve as a reminder, encouragement. And yeah, I really appreciate you accepting our invitation, you sharing so much without holding back because
Mm.
you've really shared a lot. A lot of
Yeah.
people will probably not want to tell you, how they got into school or the challenges they faced. I'm not joking, Kachi. I'm sure that experienced people holding information back when you
For
really want
sure.
it.
Yeah, like that's a regular
It's nice
thing.
that you shared. Thank you so much, Elvis. I
Yeah.
am trusting that this recording will be worked on. It's so funny that there's almost nothing to edit because everything you shared
Yeah, it
is
was just like very
time and
valuable, no? Yeah.
yes, they're very valuable. So thank you, Kachi. Thank you so much for joining us,
Thank
Elvis.
you.
I
Yeah,
look
I
forward to
really
being
appreciate that.
interviewed, on all the different magazines. Like my friend would say, I said, when the time is right, things will come to you. Do you get?
Yeah.
So,
Mm.
I feel that you are entering a season when people are going to want to hear more from you. So
Mm.
yes, you've not been loud enough. There's still so much more. Thank
And it's really like these conversations because, like, as much as I try, as much as I can to, like, oh, I'm advising people, I think for me, it is also something that now serves as a reinforcement for me.
yes,
Oh, I'm telling people not to be loud. I'm telling people to be loud about what they do. Why then would I not be loud? Like, why then would I,
loud.
like, talk to people?
Exactly.
So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for bringing me on.
Thank
Like, this has
thank
honestly
you.
a very, very insightful conversation. We would continue to talk. And like I promise you, I am always looking forward to your post. I just have some people that, like, when they post, I don't care how long it is, like, I have to stay. And
Right. I feel
yeah,
the same way. I literally do it and I'm like, that's what we're
yeah,
talking about. We
yeah,
need people to talk more. And I'm
yeah.
glad that we are one of those people doing that.
No, for
Thank
sure,
you.
for sure. The people that, like, I really love to read their posts and, like, even like if it's something I relate with, I leave a comment because I kind of feel like I have a large platform. So, like, when I leave a comment, other people get to see it, and then they also now
Yes.
get to engage with the post if they want.
experience and engage with it.
Yeah, I appreciate this. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you,
I
Elvis.
genuinely do not see the need to hoard information because we are such a small community, to be honest, and like people really
Yeah,
need these things for them to make better decisions for themselves. So like if one thing I have said resonates, then by all means. And before we just end though, I just want to say that like I am honestly very accessible. So if there's anyone who may be seeing this, like my LinkedIn is really like where it's at, like just
exactly.
message me and you would get a response for sure.
We testify to that, guys. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Elvis. Have a
thank you.
beautiful,
Yeah,
beautiful afternoon
you too.
and enjoy the weather.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
will. It's sunny now. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.